So first you need to know in people-centered development what is participation. Okay, how would you define participation? What is the importance of participation of the villagers, of the peoples where we intervene? Okay, so the basic definition of participation is to involve into the decision making, involve into the planning, involve into the execution of the project so that you can own the project. That's how we understand people's participation in development. Now, when we talk about participation as a whole, so how do we understand participation? What kind of participation we are talking of? Okay, we say that it is all about people's involvement in the development project, right? And also people's engagement, but how it can be possible and how measurable it can be. Okay, so it is important to make participation measurable, and hence we have a typology of participation through which we can measure participation. Okay, so participation itself is a means to an end, and you may also say it is an end to get the development. It is also means to development, making people participate into the planning, designing of a project, evaluating, implementing, evaluating, and then monitoring of a project is the process, is the means to development, which is the end. Right. And hence we also want people to participate so that they understand and realize the existing natural resources within that community, as well as own that natural resources. They feel that these resources are their own, and they can also take a decision on their own to have a lasting impact on the development. In top-down model of development, we impose what they need to do. But here, people will decide what they want to do, and people will also clarify their needs. They will also identify the problem. They will also identify the existing resources in that locality, in that villages. Now, you see that there is a method, this is called participatory rural appraisal, which has been used by NGOs since 1980s, and this method is a kind of challenge to rapid rural appraisal, which we have been using in universities. Right. Before that, before understanding the participatory rural appraisal, we also need to understand the typologies of participation. What kind of participation we are expecting from the people, right? So you see that participatory may be voluntary, it might be involuntary, right? It might be induced participation, it also might be transient participation. When you see voluntary participation, people comes out of their willingness and take part in decision making and try to give a solution to the problem. When there is an involuntary participation, then it is being imposed from the outside agency to them. Okay, that we want you to participate irrespective of their willingness to participate in any project. That is an involuntary participation. We also have a transient nature of participation when people will come forward to participate in different ways, like giving cash, giving materials, and contribute to any kind of project. Okay, and we also have induced participation, which we call mass participation. Means we are not talking about one segment of the population who can participate and whom we want to participate in a development. There is also a mass participation which may be media induced or which may be motivation induced. Okay, they got the inspiration from somewhere and they participate. There is a mass participation, which we actually do not want if we try to understand the people-centered development. Because although development is more than segment-wise distribution, but here when we talk about the community development, we cater to the whole community. irrespective of caste, class, gender, and other division on the basis of ascriptive identities in the villages. So you see that we are talking about development of all the communities, not a specific segment of the communities. Although our schemes, our benefits, our developmental goals are meant towards one particular community, women, but in a way, our nature of development, our intervention should also benefit other segment of the population. But it is meant for the women because we consider them at the bottom of the ladder of, you see, development. Okay, bottom of the pyramid, and hence we want them to develop so that they can also, their development can bring development to other segment of population. But here, when you talk about the mass participation, we are not talking about segment-wise participation. It is a mass participation of the people in voting. Okay, so here we do not want any kind of segmentation. So these are the very basic understanding of participation. Apart from that, you see, Pretty, he is also a kind of PRETTY. He has made a division, a typology of participation based on his intervention to various rural development projects. He carried out various rural development projects and he found that okay, people can participate themselves in those projects differently. So when we talk about people's participation, one is zero participation, where people are not willing to participate. So if you see from non-participation to participation, so if the sister card, do you have a marker with you? So from next time, what must be the marker? Okay. So actually see, so here we say non-participation and participation. Okay, so from non-participation to participation, if you see, we start with first imposed participation, and that is also is a indifferent form of participations where people are actually indifferent; they are being imposed. Okay, then we also have zero participation. Zero participation is not indifferent form of participation. Means they are not aware of any kind of announcement, any kind of plan and program, so they don't participate. So that can also be termed as a cause of non-participation. So there is also a zero participation, then indifferent participation, and then we also have participation by sharing information. This is a very important form of form in that typology. When we say participation by sharing information, here your execution of method will come into play. The kind of method which rapid rural appraisal has provided to rapid rural appraisal. So this is not a really good marker. I am finding it very difficult to from the office. So in rapid rural appraisal, we actually see it comprises of gamut of methodologies and approaches which are used by the university. So prior to 1970s and 80s, we get to find rapid rural appraisal as a medium of intervention, as a methodological intervention towards development in a village. Okay, we have methods like survey method, focus group discussion, interview schedule are part of rapid rural appraisal, and it is through which you can get the information from the villages. So participation in information sharing is also a part of rapid rural appraisal as well as PRA. PRA is a later development. So when we talk about development at a later stage, it also includes the RRA. Okay, apart from its own methodologies, it also includes the RRA methodology. But it will make the methods more people centric, and it will make people involved into that developmental practice, make it less time consuming. We actually find the challenges of rapid rural appraisal first, and then we actually see that how PRA will make it a kind of reverse way round, and we see that PRA will make residual appraisal much and the methodological intervention for development much more less expensive, cost effective, and also people centered, and on-spot analysis, okay, and also facilitating instead of eliciting the information. So here, when we talk about these methodologies like information extracting, that were interview, focus group discussion, these are basically used for information extracting from the villagers. So villagers do share the information. So information sharing is also also one part, one type of participation. Then we have consultation. So most of the time we also do consult with the villagers if there is a development activities taking place. Suppose you want to build infrastructure. Yesterday I have already told you want to build a school in a villages, and you take one you as a NGO, you wanted to come up with a school project, you want to build a school, and you take permission from the villagers and you consult with them. You also hold a meeting and make them involved into the meeting. So this is a kind of consultation. So information through consultation and participation, information sharing through consultations and participation is second type of participation. Apart from that, you see the imposed participation and zero participation. We have information sharing and we also have consultation. Then we have material participation. Material participation is equivalent to contribution to community by giving or contributing any kind of cash material, which I have already told you that you even have given suppose given their old clothes, okay, for recycle purpose. Okay, then they have also fetched water. They are the collector, they fetch water which is needed in building, in constructing a house. That is also a kind of labor they have contributed. No? So you can also see that village, that Gaon Burha, that village or Mahat has given a land, his land, which he has occupied. Okay, so that is the kind of contribution that he has given. Then also you can see somebody can give their own house. That might also be a contribution. So participation through contribution is also a kind of, we also usually have this kind of contribution in us. Okay, in a way we are also trying to do some scale of development, very small scale of engagement in developmental project, not a project in developmental activities. Then we also have functional participation. This is related to, you see, the formation of groups, which is very important. Institution building. Building institution is a prime and key essential component in locality development model. So you are supposed to build institution as a community worker, NGO representative. You are supposed to make self-help group. So this is a kind of functional, participation. Through self-help group you are participating, because anyhow through self-help group you are getting credit and all, and you are also carrying out different activities. You are getting credit to even open a tailor shop. You are getting credit. You are getting credit even through self-help group to even run a business. You are participating. Okay. So that is another kind of participating, and we also have a passive. Passive is also kind of imposed participation, but it is different from imposed participation in a way that you have the acceptance from the villagers that okay, one developmental activities is already been undertaken, and you were aware of it through our campaign. So we want your support. So here, not necessarily that you will be consulted beforehand, but through social planning, they understood some of the problem in the villages. They carried out the campaign and get acceptance from the villages. Okay, but you are not actually participating. So kind of benefits that you have received and derived from the schemes, you are not actually participating in it. Okay, but yeah, you have accepted it. So this is a kind of basic participation. But it is different from the imposed participation. Just because in imposed participation, uh, uh, despite your unwillingness, you are pushed to go, you are imposed to take the development benefits, which is not even needed. You are not, it's not like that it's not being consulted. It's not being consulted. They did not, many a time, developmental agent, they don't carry out any kind of survey, proper survey, because there are so many funds available, government funds available. So hence, we also see mushrooming of NGOs. So without even getting registered properly, and they just establish in order to avail of funds, and they are not aware of the intelligence of the villagers and also local people, and they often ignore the fact that they are intelligent, they do have knowledge, they do have their own skill set to which they can contribute, and most of the time villagers are also ignorant about some of the skills, and hence we see that developmental practitioners, they simply intervene and they make the schemes available. People do not even know aware about the schemes. Okay, and they somehow they feel that we did not need it. Didn't need it, but yeah, we are taking it just because it is there, or you have made it available. So this is called a kind of imposed participation. This is also a part of, you see, this mainstream model of development, because the actual need of people is not reflected in that participatory paradigm. We won't get to see the actual need of the people. I have already told you, which is very important to understand, the need of the people. What do they need? And hence, we are emphasizing upon the participatory rural appraisal. Okay, and then we also have another form of participation, that is called self-mobilization or autonomous, being autonomous. You can be autonomous not only by constructing or forming a group, or you forming an agency, you can form an agency, you can form a group, and you can be autonomous, irrespective of external intervention, or maybe in participation with external agency, you are taking a project parallelly. That is also kind of autonomy, or you might also say partnership. So we have two terminologies here. One is partnership, in partnership with other organization. As a villagers, you first mobilize yourself into a group, into an institution, and you participate in that project parallelly with the developmental agency, which is outside, which is from the outside, which is staying outside the villages. Okay, that is partnership. So collaboration and partnership is also kind of participation. So you are collaborating with other universities, is a kind of participation also. The exchanging resources, we exchange resources, we exchange students, exchange faculty, okay, members, exchange classes, are also kind of participation. And then that mobilization, self-mobilization, and even networking in terms of developmental project, which is very important, and autonomy, gaining autonomy. When you are not relying upon the external agencies, but you are so very self-reliant, you are so very, you see, capable of utilizing the developmental benefit for your own end, that you can act autonomously for any kind of developmental activities, and which we actually want, that self-mobilization and autonomy. That is the highest goal of participation that any people-centered development is trying to pursue. Okay, now you see that um, participatory rural appraisal, it is opposite to rapid rural appraisal. So we have rapid rural appraisal. So we have rapid rural appraisal that came in 1960s, 70s, which were used by university, and we also have participatory rural appraisal. A number of methodology, we can say, a group of approaches to intervene into the rural life, to understand the rural conditions, rural developmental status, rural people, and also make them plan, involve in action plan, involve in implementation of the action plan, and monitoring and evaluation. Okay, so this is what is, you see, the participatory rural appraisal. And this term is coined by Robert Chamber. Robert Chamber coined this term during 1970. But you see, we have got a portion. His book was, I got this term in the book he has written in 1977. He was a rural developmental expert, okay, expert in rural development, who coined the term participatory rural appraisal. And it was also used during 1980s in CONCAN International. It was first used in CONCAN International Conference when this methodology was first used and a paper was presented. Okay, now you see what is important is the type of methodology in participatory rural appraisal. Here we are talking about mapping, resource mapping. We are talking about social mapping. We are talking about problem tree. We are also focusing upon seasonal calendar. Right, matrix ranking, wealth ranking. Yeah, we will be writing down all those methods. Okay. Then we talked about inflow and outflow diagram, Venn diagram, historical profile, timeline, various case studies are part of participatory rural appraisal. Case studies are also part of residual appraisal, but it came later. Okay, but actually it is a part of participatory PRA, participatory rural appraisal. Now you see that what is the significance of participatory rural appraisal? So we are talking about number of methods. Those methods are not simply methods. In rapid rural appraisal, we are talking about the methods of intervention in development, but in participatory rural appraisal, we are talking not only about methods of intervention, we are talking about methods that facilitate change and participation. So, these methods are not only for eliciting the information, but only to facilitate the behavioral change. So, in participatory rural appraisal, we actually see the goal of behavioral change and communication for social change is being realized. Okay, hence we see that the actor, the mode is also very different. It is less time consuming and it is much more participatory, it is cost effective and it is on spot analysis. Okay, on spot analysis, it will involve NGOs at the same time. Apart from universities, now universities are also relying on these very methodologies, right? And if you see, it will basically it will facilitate that participation. Okay, that's now you see. uh, Talk about some of the methods like candlelight. Transectua, then historical profile, then we have these are some basic methods. Apart from that, there are more. So we start with the timeline. You actually know it is also part of historical profile. So first thing is the understanding of the problem and understanding the village. So when you intervene, you need to have some information about the villages. You need to make an assessment of the villages so that your methods looks much more visual. Here, when you talk about a PRA, we are actually shifting from verbal to visual. We are also shifting from closed to open methodology. So verbal to visual and close to open methodology. So here when you actually make a transit tour, so you actually transacting the villages. You go, you walk, we talk about the observation, method of observation, participant observation or non-participant observation. Equivalent to transit tour. You usually go, you find out and assess the available resources in that villages. Okay, and from your BRI and you note down and you make a timeline. You find out the key informant of the villages. You understand any kind of evolution of any practices in that villages and different timeline and different milestone of the evolution and development of that particular phenomenon in that villages. So in timeline, you actually try to focus on any of the issues, any phenomenon. You say problem related to maybe energy uses, okay, or problem related to employment. Okay, you can develop a timeline. Okay, you can timeline in the sense when people were first. The thing is that the kind of occupation that people have. Okay, and when all the villagers were engaged, having an occupation in agricultural sector and non-agricultural sector. So you write down the time, adject time, adject date. Okay, then you see there is a shift from employment to unemployment just because there is a transition from agricultural businesses to non-agricultural services. Okay, and then you see this timeline, the adjective, when there is a shift from agriculture to non-agriculture, employment to non-employment. Then you see you can take any kind of phenomenon and where you can develop a timeline, which is very important, and that is possible even with interaction with the villagers. So when you talk about types of methodology, we actually divide these methodologies into topical PRA, deductive PRA, which is very important to understand. Topical PRA, any kind of topic based, any topic you see, it is how you actually manage the resources. Okay, deductive PRA, you want to install a beehive keeping. In that villages, and now you want to understand the readiness of the villagers towards that installation of beehive keeping, so that a few of the villagers could be employed, right? And hence you want to understand the readiness, and you can execute these methodologies to understand the level of readiness. Apart from interview, in interviewing, they can share some of the information. And here you can control the information, but here in PRA, in interview method, in individual appraisal, we have a full control over the information they have shared. But actually this is not society centric. In each and every project we usually do, which is being funded by even ICSSR, UGC, there is a clause written that relevance of the project to society, how the project will be relevant to society. Even you do PhD, when you do dissertation, then you will be asked how your results and findings will be applicable to society. Most of the time, we won't find any applicability value because of the extreme control from our part. Okay, when there is a structured questionnaire, we are actually controlling the findings. Okay, but here in participatory rural appraisal, you cannot control the findings. Social mapping is done by them. Transit work on your part, timeline, what you can do. Social mapping is done by villagers. Resource mapping is done by villagers. Historical profile is done by villagers. Okay, you can only copy it. Okay, to understand their level of readiness, their level of awareness, their level of aptitude and understanding. So everything will be used in the research. So now you see, we'll simply go for historical profile. We'll also move to social mapping. In historical profile, you actually collect some of the folklore, proverb, ballads in the villages, okay, to understand the origin of that community. Actually, you go and collect and find those that folklores of that villages, folk songs, folk tales, Okay, some of the ballot of that community. You collect it. And which will also give you understanding of the origin of that community, which is important for you. And also about, as I have already told you, trend of any events which is being changed. When you talk about the history, there is also a way how you do a historical profile, because you want people to involve to do the historical profile. So before you actually execute the PRA, you are supposed to have some materials available with you, and those are also very kind of like ground materials, like you need to have rangoli powder, then soap with you, then some board seeds and chart paper, etc. Okay, and which you will keep with you with a mobile phone in your hand, and you go simply. You also develop a rapport with the household, village household, and you need to find a space, maybe a school ground, maybe 2 3 household where we get to see a good, like that widened premises where you can actually draw the historical profile and mapping. Okay, then that is to be converted to the side paper. And you also click a photographs, and there should be people, more than 3 people, not only one people, more than 3 4 people who will be doing the historical profile, who will be doing the social mapping. So in a way, you will also consume less time in the activities. Okay, because everything they said is being reflected upon. So you are not even, most of the time we don't need to study, but it's better also to study, have some secondary, you see, resources at your hand, you study and then you interview. But if you don't study also, then also you go develop rapport with the people, develop good rapport and understanding, and then also you mobilize them, 3 4 of them should be mobilized, and they should draw a historical profile for you. Now in historical profile, how you actually draw that historical profile is important. First you mobilize, you also, like you I have been telling you that through communication, after interacting to them, even for 3 4 times, you have that understanding. They are also ready to, like support you in drawing that historical profile, giving you that information. If you simply ask them the question, so most of the time what happens, we see that there might be inhibitions, or they might not come up with the right answer, even if you have some open-ended questions. First, though it's very difficult on the part to give answers, okay, there is also language problem, and they may not even answer that profusely the way you want. And hence, if you make them mobilized, participative say that all of you, it's a kind of game. So we will also have a game. We will understand the, like history of these villages, and you will tell us from your understanding how much you know about the history. Okay, now you see, you develop a timeline. In that, what will you do? I'll quickly remove that. This is a part of your practical, let me tell you. So you have to concentrate, and you are going to do it. And then first you actually, you see, so everything will be in tabular format. Okay, so this timeline, you don't know, you see year wise, or maybe every 3 years, you can get every 3 year wise division you can do, like you see from you see 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and 25. Now you see the kind of, like this way you can actually draw a table. Okay, you draw a table, and first you will put what you actually need. You need the overall wastage, okay, from that villages. Okay, the kind of dump paste they usually make to find out. Okay, so the wastage. Okay, or waste. So in 20, 21, 22, 24, percentage wise you see that you say, then give them some of the wastage you see, or you can say that rainfall, or if not rainfall, because rainfall will be into that might come in seasonal calendar. So we can see the income, okay, whether there is an increase in income. So actually you see increase in income or income, they might also say in terms of their occupation they might say, or economy, their economy. This is different from income. Income in percentage they might say, okay, how much they earn from the economy. And when you say the economy, again, economy or occupation. Then you say houses, kacha, pakka, which are being evolved over the year. Source of drinking water maybe. Lifestyle or clothing. Okay. Then you see number of household, and then another number of population. That number of population. So here basically you need to find out what you need. So it will be based upon historical profile, will be based upon the very goal of your study. Okay. So if you need historical profile, yeah. What's the fourth one? The fourth one. Houses. Pakka or Kacha. And the last one. When you talk about the number of households in that locality, in that village's number of households and number of population. Okay. Then you can actually see clothing style that usually changes overall. So you see these are very childlike activities and they love doing it. Okay. So if you go and interview, if you try to find out the historical profile, how their clothing pattern change, they usually wear only mekhla chadar, or a few of them wear only saris. Now girls are wearing pants and all. So I have actually taken a very small time frame. You can take in 5 years gap. Okay, then you get 5 years interval you can take. Then you could also see the kind of changes in their lifestyle, in their occupational habits, in their income which they earn, their economy, okay, their businesses, and also their diet and consumption might be one factor. Their diet, their overall consumption, that might also come in seasonal calendar. Okay, so here this is a kind of historical profile that is very important to understand if you want to understand a village first and want community to understand the village. Okay, because you want to get the information from the community and at the same time involving the community to understand the origin of any brand. Then you see marking, and whenever there is no answer, you simply put it 0 like that or cross it. Okay, so you need to involve at least a couple of people, more than 3, 4, so who will have different insights in terms of changing clothing pattern. So in 2020, they said that we all wear saris and mekhla chadars only. If not 2020, you can have an interval of 5, maybe from 2000, then 2005, then you see 2010. Then over years, you actually see a gap. Not 2020, you can take 20. Then you can have 2005. Then you see 2010, 2015. Like that way, you can actually see a change in the trend. change in the trend of housing. Then also you can have other content in tabular format like road, transport, which is very, very important. The change in the kind of transport facilities. Road, uh, there were Kacha road, now in a decade you have got the Pakka road. Okay, houses were Kacha, so within a decade you have got the Pakka houses. So you actually note down the timeline when you get the Pakka houses. Wastage, that is the kind of waste, how they make use of the wastage, what they do with the wastage, and where they put it. So this is also very important nowadays. Okay, importance of understanding the wastage is will also be deliberated upon. Okay, so you need to understand the type of wastage and also the percentage of wastage over the years, and then the income which is increased or decreased. If they tell you the exact salary, then you try to find out salary of the household. You say that average salary of the household. Okay, of if your household average salary, if your maximum salary which is being earned is you see this 25,000 or 30,000 or maybe 50,000 maximum salary. So out of that you see that you need to calculate it. In 2020, even from the village head, you will find in 2020 average income, and that too from the gross, we see that village product. Okay, how much income that village actually earn by selling goods and services. Okay, so you actually find this from the village household, the income of the village in 2000. In 2005, income raised or decreased. Then in 2010, income raised or decreased. You find that. And again, you need to note down the timeline. Then economy and the occupation. The change and shift in the economy and the occupation, I have told you. They were engaged in agriculture. Now most of the youth are engaged in service sectors and they are migrated. But yeah, they are also earning money and they are transferring the money to the household. Okay, so in a way they are contributing, and those are also part of income to the village. So you also wrote down, you will write down this. Then houses, pakka, kacha, sources of drinking water or maybe irrigation, which you can also write. Drinking water source, how it is evolved. So well, tube well. So now each household has deep water. Okay, so that is a kind of change over the years. Initially, there is no tap water available for them, and now they do have well as well as tap water. And there is also tube well. Okay, so what you can do now, it will be difficult to get the exact statistics. So at times, what you can do, you can draw a icon. It is very easier for village to draw an icon. In terms of drinking water, you draw an icon. Like a well, okay, drinking water like that thing. So it will be, or if there are drinking water well during that, so you can simplify. There is only well. Here you can say well. You can find this well, and there is also drinking water like that way, and you see that not tap water, only well. Then well, then tube well maybe. Actually find that. Then well, then drinking water, then also tube well. Like that way you can put some symbols. Okay. So by 2010, they do have tap water, well as well as tube well. Three sources of water available. So that's what you can earn and learn. You make people draw for you. You are not going to do anything. You only facilitate. You tell them, I need this information. Now you will draw it for me. And the same thing you will simply transfer to a certain people. Okay, that you will do. Okay. So this is what it is all about, the historical profile. And also in historical profile, you are supposed to calculate the folklore, folktale of that village, which is very important source of information. Okay. And then Venn diagram. This is a very important PRA tool. When you talk about the Venn diagram, most of the people usually do this Venn diagram as a PRA instead of historical profile. This is all about people's accessibility to the institutions available in the villages. So you need to find out the available institution, school, police station, village committees, then panchayats. You can actually see that public health center, okay, then bank, credit facilities, self-help group. These are some of the institutions which are available in the village. So you will distinguish these very institutions through a circle. Okay, bigger the circle, better accessible it is for you. Okay, so this kind of circle can also overlap. Suppose if we have a Venn diagram, this is called a chapati diagram, like a chapati. This is called chapati diagram. Like a chapati, they do here what you will do, you will identify the institution first, list out the institutions in the villages, then you draw. Village panchayat has a bigger role. So we'll come at the center. Panchayat. Panchayat will also touch the services of UCPH. So you can also see this is a PH. Okay. Then you also have a school. Then you can have like that way you can have police station. Okay, self-help group. Credit facility, or maybe there are some credit facility outside the village or inside the village. Then, like that way. So now you name it. Let me tell you that for Venn diagram you can have PRA for different segment of people. You can have PRA for women segment of people. You can have a PRA for male segment of people. Means you can tell women segment to draw a Venn diagram for you, which will be different from the male segment of the village when they draw a PRA for you. So for you, not a Venn diagram for you. Now for women, access to police station will be always, you see, less. Right, they don't access, they don't go to police station much, and there is also kind of fear, inhibitions, aberrations. So definitely it will be distinguished and it will be a smaller size circle. But for male, they often access to police station maybe because of more number of crime which is available in that. So they might draw it as a larger circle, because the size of the circle will determine the more accessibility and availability and connections. Here it is also understand the connection. So women, the way they can connect to the institution will be different from the man connected to the institution. So you can also have separate Venn diagram for different segment of the people. Now you see village panchayat will come in the middle. It's a bigger circle and it has a stake in even self-help group, women's self-help group. It has a stake in, you say, it was school, village school, and PHC. And you see, there are credit facilities. This is a bank, or if this is a rural bank, this is also a state bank in there. But this relatable, most of the household in a village have an account in a state bank. So you have drawn this circle. So this is important Venn diagram to understand the proximity, accessibility of the institution. Okay. You will make people to draw the diagram for you, and then you again transfer it to the chart paper or make a snapshot of it. And then we talked about seasonal calendar, which is also important. Seasonal calendar is important to understand the suppose you say gender workload in agricultural and non-agricultural field over the time, diet consumption of the women and male folk over the years. Okay, then you see some pattern like a grazing pattern, breeding pattern of livestock. Then you see the rainfall pattern, so which can be identified through seasonal calendar, and also about migratory trends, migration from rural to urban areas. Okay, will help from seasonal calendar. Everything will be drawn from the seasonal calendar. So seasonal calendar is also similar to historical profile. So here again you will draw a table. So in that table what you will do, you will month wise you will actually see the distribution will be month wise. So like January, February, March, April, May, June, July, like that way you will distribute. Then you actually see here, you see the rainfall distribution. Okay, which is important to understand the weather of the village. Okay, then what will you have after rainfall? Understanding the rainfall distribution, the precipitation of the rainfall, which changes over the years. You can also have year-wise distribution, but basically if you go minutely month-wise distribution, it will give a better interpretation. Okay, then you see the consumption over the months, over the years, consumption increase or decrease. Okay, maybe people in a village, one household is having some disease or suffering from some illness, consumption has lessened, dropped, right? So you need to find the increase and decrease of diet and consumption over the months and over the years. So consumption pattern. Consumption or diet. Then you see migration, which is a trend in migration from rural to urban areas. Okay, in January, how many people are migrated? Even they started working outside this rural belt. There are school children. There are school kids. By 8th standard, by the time they are promoted to 8th standard, they are migrated to Guwahati or some other places for searching household job for them. Okay, or they started finding job in any restaurant or okay. So just in search of job, they have migrated. So you see migration, trend of migration in January, you number wise you see number of by January you see 30 people have been migrated. By February you say few people came back, but again total overall migration and migratory trend has reflected in like 40 people, 40 in number. So like that way you can actually draw the migratory trends, migration. Then gender workload is very important. Okay, suppose gender workload in agricultural and non-agricultural field. So that is also part of seasonal calendar. Gender workload. Gender workload in January, you see. In agricultural field, you can also have a separate, column or the row out there. Like agricultural field, gender workload in agricultural field, gender workload in non-agricultural field. Okay, in January you see in percentage you can see gender workload was 70%, gender workload was 20%, and gradually it has dropped down because you have convinced that male of the household has started contributing. So it will also help you to implement any project. So whatever methods you will be executing as an NGO practitioners, as a development analyst or development practitioners, it will be help you to execute any project. So it is a pre-test and a post-test survey. So before you intervene, you have an analysis of all these parameters, and that too from the village people. After you implement the project, again you have an analysis of all the parameters from the people. So from people's point of view, he said that okay, so we have this strand reflected from them, and what they said we have put it down, and it is in front of you. So people-centered development is in front of you. Okay. So prior to intervention, you will also have an assessment of the community from the people, apart from your own understanding. Here you are not going to impose your decision. So as a development practitioner, you are not supposed to lecture here. You are supposed to listen. So hence there are some principle of PRA. Principle of PRA said that the kind of PRA we are going to execute is supposed to give a kind of offsetting bias, in a sense that it will be of probing nature, but it will not be passed from development interventionist or practitioner to the people. So we are not going to pass our knowledge to them. We are simply tell them what they're understanding. So we will probe. We'll probe. Okay, tell me. This is what it is. So we will not simply pass that we understand. We had a different kind of trend. I have studied. So you have said me different way. So you're not supposed to argue. You're not supposed to pass down your information. You simply interrogate and query and discover and get the information from their side. Okay, so you listen more and give the lecture less. Okay, then that is one thing. Hence it is called offsetting bias. Offsetting bias is one very basic principle of PRA. Then we also have the progressive learning, which is another principle of PRA. So when you talk about progressive learning, so in the very first intervention, first or second day, you may not learn anything from, because these people might be very fearful not to disclose any information, right? They might have some inhibitions or aberrations not to disclose things. Then gradually when you develop that rapport with them, they start feeling comfortable with you. Okay, so progressively you are learning, and progressively they are also sharing. And this is also called another third principle of PRA is reverse learning. When you say reverse learning is that it is learning from the field, from the people. It is not what you know and you are diffusing it. You are disseminating it. It is what they learn are told to you. So you are doing nothing actually here. You are simply facilitating. Whatever they learn will be told to you, and you will simply reflect that upon on the documents that you have, and even in the basic village materials, so that there could be feelings that they have also participated. Okay, so this is very important. Reverse learning plan, offsetting bias. These are some of the principles of, you see, apart from sharing, apart from coverage, apart from efficiency, effectiveness. These are also some of the principles which come as a consequence of PRA. So what we achieve by doing this PRA, we achieve the efficiency, because it is, you might feel that it's time consuming. It's actually not time consuming. First 1 or 2 visits you need to make. Okay, you develop a report. So definitely it's not like that you will not get any responses from the community. You get some responses. You say that okay, so you mobilize them, and then you make them draw for you this Venn diagram, these that social mapping, resource mapping, this historical profile, and everything should be taken care of. So you will have a snapshot of their activities, and it's done. So it's not that time consuming, in the sense that you don't need more funding here. Normally what happens in RRA, we need funding for carrying out a survey of 600, 700 people population. So you need funding from external source. So carrying a survey of you say 10, 20 or 100 people is fine. It's okay. You can do it yourself, but not more than that. If you have to visit household, we're talking from developmental perspective. So when you talk about online survey, you need to make people literate. So you need to intervene only the literate population. So what about the illiterate population? They will not come online, right? So any kind of developmental intervention will definitely bias towards non-literate population. So that will make you to visit households. How many households you can visit in a day? It is very difficult for you. And hence you mobilize people at one place. You make a transit work, you mobilize 2-3 people. So one development practitioner can cover one village. For an NGO, one person is there, practitioner is there, who will cover one village, and you will take care of all the village like household facilities, household problem, and the challenges that villagers have. And he does have understanding of each and every problem, each and every, you see, the challenges that villagers are facing, and hence you simply go and mobilize the community. So I'm talking about surveying the illiterate people. Okay, it's not about literate. It's very easy to survey literate people, and online survey is very easier nowadays. But what happens when you actually intervene for any developmental project? NGOs are also running projects. There are different developmental projects they are running. Suppose you see that you have got a fund from donor to install, you see, solar fields. Okay, now you need to carry out PRA to understand the energy requirement of that village. So you find that they require night security. Okay, so those solar fields, solar lamp could also be used at night. Daytime, they take the energy, and at night it could serve. And then you can you also find that the kind of energy uses that you have, and that too from PRA, you understand. And then you simply develop a kind of it's a report that these are their needs, these are the villagers and household needs about the energy, and we have also come across these very fields, and these many energy fields are required to give them energy, like energy output. Okay, so this is important. Okay, then also we have social mapping. So should I finish it, or we also have resource mapping and social mapping. I'll simply tell you, and problem tree. Problem tree is very interesting. Here you actually find out that concept called branches, trunk, and roots. Roots are the causes of the problem. If trunk is the problem is the youth unemployment in that village. Okay, that is the trunk. Youth unemployment. You see the root causes of youth unemployment. You see the lack of job opportunities, or mismatch of skills and the professional that need. Okay, and you can also find other kind of developmental deficiencies. There are not enough schemes to make them get into a job. Okay, so these are some of the causes which will come in root. And then you have the branches and the leaves, which will be the consequences of the problem. Consequences of the problem may be drug abuse, increasing crime rate. You get to find migration to urban areas. Okay, these are the causes. These are consequence of the problem. So like that way, you can also make some of the youth, or maybe semi-literate or literate person of the village, to draw a problem tree for you. Suppose if this is the tree, okay, draw that tree for you. So like that way. Okay. Now you see, this is the problem. This is youth unemployment. Okay, if this is due to unemployment, trunk is the youth unemployment. This is the very problem. This is the root causes. Root causes, you find out the root causes of unemployment. Lack of job opportunity. Lack of job opportunities. Okay? Then lack of vocational training. Okay? Then you see mismatch of skill sets and industry needs. If these are the root causes, now you see the consequence of it. Consequence of it would be, you see migration. Then drug abuse, alcoholism. Then crime, increase in crime rate. Like that way, you can also develop a problem tree. You can mobilize the youth of the village. You can mobilize any segment, and then you can make them draw a problem tree for you, and you again transfer it to chart paper. Okay, this is supposed to be done. You transfer it to get a snapshot, so it will be done in the ground, done on the ground. Okay, on the ground, any premises of the household or maybe panchayat, kind of premises, school premises, where they will draw. Okay, if there is a pakka house premises, then you can use the chalk. Otherwise, you can use the rangoli and all. So, click a photograph and again you transport to chart paper. In chart paper, you can have your own painting maybe. Huh? Sorry? Sorry?
He is asking for real images of the diagram.
This is problem 3. Problem 3. This is problem 3. This is one of the PRA methodology. Okay, so in problem 3, you have 3 sections. One is the trunk section, which is the problem itself. One is the root section, which is the causes, which are the causes of the problem, and then you have the branches and the leaves of the tree, which will denote the consequences of the problem. Okay, so you have different methods to understand different aspect of one village. Historical profile will give you understanding of the trend and evolution of any phenomenon in that villages. Seasonal calendar will give you understanding about the pattern related changes over the months, over the years. Then problem tree will give you understanding the problem cause and consequences of the village or one segment of population or maybe different segment of population as a coherent basis. Okay, and then you see Venn diagram will give you the understanding of accessibility of the segment of population to the existing institutions in that villages. Okay, you see you have different practices which will give you different idea. It's difficult for you to go to each 40, 50, 60, how many households? There are 120 households in the villages. So you cannot go to each household. So based way, in a week you can do 2-3 PRA and have a clear understanding about the problem of the villagers, about the existing institution, about the history, about the resources available, and about the social resources available. Now you see natural resources and social resources are also different. Okay, understood? You are going to do it. This is a part of your practical. So take it seriously. Okay. You can take any two. You can take any two methods. You can work on any 2 methods. You don't have to do all the methods. You don't have to do resource mapping, social mapping, historical profile. Do any 2. Come up with any 2 methods. It will be easier for you. This is beyond ChatGPT. This is something which you actually need to intervene in, to go to the village, understanding the people's aptitude, their interest, their problem, and then you need to reflect upon it. So this is fine, no? And should I also tell you about the social mapping? No? Okay. The next time. Yeah. Sorry? मिलेगा मिलेगा नोट्स मिलेगा सो अच्छा अभी बताओ कुछ कन्फ्यूजन है ये समझने में ये बहुत ही आसान है जो भी तुम लोगों को बोला गया है समझाया गया है ठीक है तो कोई अगर प्रॉब्लम हो तो बताओ समझ लिया ना ये असाइनमेंट करना है हर एक को करना है ये असाइनमेंट अभी ये जितने भी गांव हैं हमारे आसपास तो तुम लोग सब एक दो एक काम करो divide yourself in a group of 2 okay and you visit the villages you can also 4-5 of you or maybe 10 of you visit a single village and another 10 of you can also choose a different village okay and another 10 of you choose another village there are so many surrounding villages and 10 of you so you can also visit a village in bulk and then you divide yourself okay divide yourself into group of 2 हाँ अकेले मत करो ये ग्रुप प्रोजेक्ट है लेकिन नॉट बियॉन्ड 2 सो एक ग्रुप में कितने हैं यू आर 44 राइट 43 so in one group there will be 3 in rest of the group there will be 2 members so you will also talk to the villagers of the chosen village and you work on any of the 2 methodologies so this should not include any kind of focus group discussion or you say interview schedule which anyhow you will be working on in the next semester okay so it will include only the PRA hardcore PRA also includes focus group discussion PRA also include case studies PRA also include the inflow outflow diagram it will also include matrix ranking which is very important okay resource mapping social mapping so many methodologies are there in the PRA and which are basically you see significant from development perspective so NGO uses this methodology and NGO usually uses this kind of methodologies but nowadays university also started using this PRA methodology because when you are talking about finishing your PhD and all so it is also important to include these methodologies in studying because it's very difficult for you to carry out a mass survey and quantitative study of 600, 700 household and then to get the findings. Okay.